So I've had my sim slapped inside of the Nothing Phone 2 for over a week now, although a better name for this literally flashy blower might be the Nothing Phone Plus, because it isn't directly replacing last year's Nothing Phone 1. This is a more premium handset for those who want extra features and a bit more grunt, and are willing to throw an extra £179 at Colpay & Co. But enough intro waffle, let's review, and for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! So for this more flagship device, Nothing has gone bigger in pretty much every way, and that includes the size of the Nothing Phone 2. This 6.7 incher thankfully doesn't feel much bigger when you fondle it, as those bezels have shrunk a bit and the handset is a wee bit skinnier. But you've still got those iPhone style flat edges, and that curvature is subtle to say the least. So while the Nothing Phone 2 isn't uncomfortable to clutch, it's not exactly a hand pleaser. And if you wear skinny jeans, good f***ing luck ramming it in your pocket. Still, while casual tech enthusiasts may struggle to tell the first and second Nothing phones apart, you can't deny that these are fun, unique and strangely alluring smartphones. Depending on your neighbourhood, that hyperactive disco-os is either going to elicit gasps of wonder when you yank it out down your local, or just get you slapped. As with the previous generation, the Nothing Phone 2 comes in a choice of just two colours, dark grey or white. And while I preferred the lighter model in the original Nothing Phone 1, I'm certainly more drawn to the dark grey effort this time around. It's not so dark that you can't see all of the little interesting details of Nothing's design, but it really helps to accentuate the Glyph lights when those are doing their Bobby Dazzler routine. And so far, certainly, the Nothing Phone 2 is proven to be pretty bloody sturdy. So far, that aluminium frame has only a tiny wee scuff in one corner from where the phone possibly slipped through a hole in my shorts and clattered to a hard floor. The pre-installed screen protector has helped to prevent any damage to that display, and as for the glass-tastic arse, well, not a single scratch or scuff anywhere on that to be seen. This morpho is tougher than a whole army of Bruce Lees off their tits on sackfuls of poppers. And the Nothing Phone 2 is IP54 dust and water resistant, so while you certainly shouldn't take it in the shower to check your messages first thing in the morning, it can endure a bit of a hearty downpour as you'd expect from a phone designed by a British team. Now, one of the highlights of the Nothing Phone 2 for me has been Nothing OS, now with a fresh lick of paint, or more accurately, completely drained of colour. This monochrome finish may sound rather dull and depressing, which again suits the British vibes, but I actually found it rather refreshing. The idea behind these colourless vibes is it helps to reduce distractions and therefore cut down on unnecessary screen time, and it actually seems to bloody work. Obviously, different people will respond to it in different ways, but personally I found that without bold, colourful logos staring me in the face every time I yanked this thing out of my pocket and unlocked it, I was less likely to tap on social media shenanigans and therefore waste a whole bunch of time. I just got on with whatever I actually wanted to do when I yanked it out of my pants in the first place. And if you're not convinced, well, alright then, fussy bollocks. Don't worry, because you can have a stock Android experience instead if you fancy that. Although you do have to specify whether you want the Nothing OS layout or that stock Android experience when you first set up the phone, and I'm not sure if you can switch between the two without fully resetting the bugger. Anyway, Nothing OS version 2 serves up plenty of other nifty upgrades to the lock screen, the folders, all kinds of stuff. And that Glyph lighting has been improved and split into even more sections, with bonus functions chucked in that are Nothing Phone 2 exclusives. So for instance, the Glyph timer is quite funky and a great way to track time without seeing any of the distractions on that lock screen. Although it is only an approximate measure, as it's basically just a glowing fuse that dwindles down to nothing. So while it's quite good for, say, giving yourself an hour before you need to stop work and actually eat some food, it's not quite so good if you're cooking or baking. And as I'm not an Uber user, I haven't yet tested out the similar feature which gives you a Glyph countdown until your ride arrives. I can see that being a really good one for the likes of Just Eat deliveries. You're playing a game, you're watching a movie, you don't want to be constantly picking up your phone and locking it and checking out how long it is before your KFC bargain bucket arrives. But if you've got your phone face down, you can just casually glance across and see how long is left on that fuse timer before that wee bucket of heaven arrives. However, the flip to Glyph feature was unfortunately a wee bit wonky for me, especially when I was travelling by train. Occasionally it would take a wee while to activate or just not activate at all, maybe caused by the vibrations on the thing. And I also struggled with it when I laid it down on a sofa or some kind of surface that wasn't completely flat. Hopefully that's just some early doors shittery that'll get sorted out in a future software update. And likewise, this past week I did find that Do Not Disturb was constantly activating all on its lonesome, and this might be because I stuck a widget there on the lock screen and that was somehow getting nudged. But I do love that fresh new essential notifications feature, which you can set for any app or your most beloved of contacts. So for instance, activate it for your sweetheart, and then when they message, you will be constantly notified by the Glyph lighting until you actually bother to pick up the phone and read that message. Very handy if you've wandered off and missed the original thing trickling through. Anyway, a couple of wee bugs aside, I really liked Nothing OS 2 rather a lot. There's tons of great stuff packed in here, and of course a few bits that could use some tweaks to make them even better. And if you want a full tour of all of that software shenanigans, I've done you a full Nothing OS 2 tips, tricks and best features guide in a separate video, so if you have a good old squint at that. Oh, and before I forget, Nothing is planning 3 OS updates and 4 years of regular security updates for the Nothing Phone 2, so it won't be a useless slab anytime soon, cross fingers. This past week I've also had absolutely sod all issues with the optical fingerprint sensor, to the point where I actually forgot to set up the face recognition for the first few days because I simply did not need to use it. And the Nothing Phone 2 also serves up more storage options compared with the previous generation. You've got between 128 or 512 gigs of storage, though once again sadly not expandable via micro SD memory cards. Now, the Nothing Phone 2 serves up a bigger 6.7-inch OLED screen, and while it's not as sharp as some mid-range rivals like the Honor 90 and the OnePlus Nord 3, it is still undeniably a treat for your peepers. While my sample doesn't support HDR streaming on Netflix just yet, I found that contrast was still just as crispy, and cinematic extravaganzas certainly look lush. Even weird shit like this avatar thing. The panel is super bright, so I had no trouble seeing what was going on when the sun was shining, even when I was wearing shades. And it's a lovely bit of LTPO tech now as well, dynamically scaling from 1Hz all the way up to 120Hz when needed. And the Nothing Phone 2 has some serious audio swagger and all. Those stereo speakers sure can cough out some loud and clear sound for watching some YouTubes when you're bashing about the kitchen or whatever. No, there's no headphone jack, obviously, but I had bugger all issues with the Bluetooth streaming apart from this one time when I lost connection with my headphones in London Bridge Station. That was it the entire week. And if you've got yourself some of Nothing's own true wireless earbuds, well, you'll get full custom controls baked into that Bluetooth menu, and definitely go check out my review of these as well. Now, it came as absolutely all surprise when Nothing revealed that the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 would be powering the Nothing Phone 2. As that was common knowledge even way back in bloody February. And while it's not the latest Qualcomm chipset, it's still more than good enough to ensure smooth sailing whatever you're up to, including realizing you have absolutely no idea what you're actually supposed to be doing in bloody Genshin Impact. No matter how many circles you run in or weird and seemingly pointless side quests you complete, you'll be charmed by a stable frame rate even on those higher graphics settings. Yes, I saw one or two judders while I was gaming when things got a bit crazy, and on one occasion the Nothing Phone 2 did have a complete meltdown and crashed mid-game. But overall it was a solid experience. You've got Nothing's gaming mode, which is basically the stock Android effort, so it is rather limited compared with some rivals, but that notifications blocking works a treat at least. And the Nothing Phone 2 can keep its cool, as those precious hours of your all too finite existence go tumbling through the hourglass, never to be retrieved. And speaking of life, the battery is another bit of this big old beauty that doesn't disappoint. You've got a slightly bigger 4700 mAh capacity cell, and this usually takes at least 6 hours of screen on time to drain. Even if you're making good use of that camera and streaming plenty of music and podcasts in the background when the phone is hibernating. I certainly never had the fear of running out of juice, even when my day never seemed to end. And while the 45 watt wired charging certainly ain't the nippiest around, it does mean that the Nothing Phone 2 can be refilled in under an hour even if it's completely drained, which certainly beats the Pixels of this world. And you've also got a tasty bit of wireless charging chucked in. Oh yeah, and the tips of the charging cable are transparent now, so that's nice I guess. Hooray for transparent tips. So let's finish this delightful Nothing Phone 2 review with a smashing bit of camera action. And this blower comes packing a fresh camera sensor, the same 50MP IMX 890 as the OnePlus Nord 3 and even the OnePlus 11 flagship, with some optical image stabilization chucked in for good measure. And for this 2023 model, Nothing has also upgraded the ISP, and the good news is that this fresh new hardware-software combo seems to have improved the photo quality, at least in some circumstances. My test pics certainly didn't look processed, to my eyes at least, offering a more natural vibe than other mid-range phones that I've recently tested like the Honor 90. As with Google's Pixel 7a, this Nothing mobile can accurately replicate colours that you capture in the wild. So vivid, vibrant stuff looks just as lovely on your screen. The Nothing Phone 2 also boasts more advanced HDR photo capture with 8 levels of exposure rather than the measly 3 of the first phone. I didn't notice much of a difference outdoors, but you certainly do not have to worry about bright backdrops or other tricky shots. This handset can usually cope absolutely fine, again without over-processing a scene like the iPhone loves to do. Ambient snaps are definitely an improvement. Now you've got more natural colours, crisper whites, and lots of fine detail packed in there. And very low light shots also come out rather well. I didn't see much grainy guff invading my night snaps, while the focus is still fast to react. It's just the blown out light sources that detract from otherwise decent pics. And naturally you have a portrait mode which can add a snazzy bokeh style effect, usually without bollocksing it up and blurring out the thing you're actually trying to shoot. The second lens slapped on the Nothing Phone 2 is an ultra-wide effort, this time a 50MP Samsung GN1 sensor. And despite the fact that it's a different sensor from a different manufacturer, swapping between this and the primary shooter isn't too jarring. Those colours are almost just as natural. And 2 lenses is all you get here, there's no telephoto shooter, and if you do crop into your photos, well, you do tend to get quite pixelated results if you're a bit enthusiastic. The Nothing Phone 2 does serve up a 50MP high resolution mode, but this doesn't help much, adding only a little bit of extra detail. It's frankly not really worth bothering with. And if you're a video fan, well, Nothing has also upgraded that side of things, so now you can record 4K footage at a fluid 60 frames per second. And again, this blower doesn't disappoint. The stabilization stops things from getting all pukey if you're shooting on the move, while that picture quality definitely gets a thumbs up, even in more ambient light. No mishaps on the audio side either. The Nothing Phone 2 clearly captures everything going on, and it isn't perturbed by a strong gust or two. And last up, Nothing's selfie cam has also been upgraded to a 32MP IMX715 shooter, and it's pretty much fine. In ambient conditions, things get a bit sort of murky and grainy again, but it's not too confused by strong backlighting, and the portrait mode seems to work quite well. So that right there, my lovelies, is my full, final, frank review of the Nothing Phone 2. And I've got to say, I really enjoyed my week using this as my full-time blower. There's enough fresh stuff and funky new features and upgrades stuffed inside of there to justify that price hike. I've got a little bit of software jank so far, but that's to be expected. I have been using this pre-release, so hopefully all that software shindiggery will get kicked right in the cock by an update. The only other complaint I have is the iPhone style blocky finish, but lots of people seem to actually really like that, so go figure. Anyway, that's what I think of the Nothing Phone 2, but it'd be great to hear you guys' thoughts down in the comments below. Please do poke, subscribe and ding that notifications bell and all the usual YouTube bollocks, and have yourself a wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you!